For the next example of the three-hand problem, I'll be discussing and demonstrating Romance in E-flat major by Anton Rubinstein. On the surface, or at least at the beginning, this piece doesn't seem to have too complex of a texture. There are rolling broken chords in the left hand. How you control the pedaling is important for that. The right hand has a melody and also accompanying notes that need to be balanced. We've talked about that kind of texture before. What's challenging is what I just mentioned, how the pedaling is going to work while you have harmonies change, but you don't want to lose the bass note every half bar. Another really significant challenge that happens is later on you're playing cross rhythms. The left hand changes to triplets and you still play a very similar right hand part. So I'm going to bring you in closer to demonstrate some of these parts of the piece in detail. So in this first phrase, as I mentioned, the left hand is playing broken chords. Notice even though the harmonies are changing, you have an E flat constantly every half bar. That's what we refer to as a pedal tone. Not like a piano pedal, but it's mimicking the function of bass notes on the organ, as if you would play a note with your foot and then be able to play everything else on the keyboards. So you would sustain that low E flat. This does present a pedal challenge. It's kind of implied that that E flat is going to last the entire half bar. But that doesn't always work. If I play it with the right hand, if I stop there, you'll notice it's kind of already creating some dissonances because I've just played a half step below. But it goes by pretty quickly, and I'm going to move on to the next half bar. So I've just done the same thing. It seems like this should clash, and it does, but because this note is sustained, we don't hear it as much. Listen to me just play the right hand with the same pedaling, but without the bass notes. There, it's really obvious I've just played the E and I'm holding it in the pedal. But if I have the underlying harmony and I have the bass note, it serves as a way of enveloping all of the notes of the melody so that they do not clash as much. This is the one moment where I would say it doesn't work to hold that F sharp to the next chord. So I am changing either right on the quarter note or on the very last eighth note. So you'll want to work with that and make sure you're listening to the fact that the half steps are clashing, but also that you want to maintain the bass line, the bass notes sustaining. Here's that phrase again because I'm going to jump to the next phrase where the rhythm gets complicated. You can also pedal every quarter note. If you find the bass note does not help you listen through those half steps. It's a real balancing act how you choose to pedal those half bars. So the next challenge is when the opening melody returns, but the left hand is now playing triplets. your first encounter with cross rhythms, this piece will be a challenge. Not because of this one phrase I just played, but because of the dotted rhythms that appear later on in this melody. Nevertheless, if you're attempting cross rhythms at the same time, you can practice just the left hand with the right hand melody without the inner voices. There's just that level of complexity when you're listening and you're trying to balance. You want to focus on what two hands are doing at the same time, not your third hand. So here's what it sounds like. So you're just trying to thread those eighth notes between the triplet. This is not a cross rhythm tutorial. There are other ways you can learn cross rhythms, but I'm just reiterating what you have to do when you play 2 against 3. The challenge in this piece is actually the dotted 8th 16th note, this measure here. This is going to sound really like splitting hairs, but if you're playing cross rhythms, you are splitting hairs on some level. So when we get to the 16th notes, what's going to happen is it sounds different when you're playing triplets than when you play 8th notes. Here it is with our original 8th notes. It's a little bit slower, but you can really hear how the 16th note is dividing the 8th notes in half. When it's with the triplet, what I do is I actually make the dotted 8th 16th note a 16th note of a triplet and not trying to play 3 against 4. So you can already hear the 16th note is a little bit quicker because it's one of 6 rather than one of 4. What makes this challenging is later when you're playing this part of the melody, how I just played it without the triplets, you can hear the 16th note divide the 8th note into half. What sounds more organic is when you're playing triplets to do that same sextuplet. The reason this is challenging is in one hand, you are playing duples and then quickly switching to a triplet feel in order to create a 16th note that sounds like it goes with the left hand. I'm going to try and play what a regular 16th note would sound like, 1 out of 4. You might decide to do that. You might decide to lock in with how that cross rhythm feels. I feel like it flows a little bit better. The melody is propelled forward if I make that 16th note part of the sextuplet. So notice I'm still playing the duple though with this part. That's the real rhythmic challenge of this part of the piece. So those are a few details to pay attention to in this piece: the importance of pedaling, listening to the bass note, and switching from duple divisions to triple divisions.